Welcome to another episode of Let's Parley, where we are here to encourage you to bet on yourself and pursue all that life has in store for you. I'm your host, Monty Taylor, and today we'll be getting into an interesting conversation where I just share a few things that I would say to my old self before I quit my job, some recommendations, some things to think about, and hopefully it will inspire you in whatever part you are in your life and allow you to maybe ask yourself those questions at this point and get some more clarity. So anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's parlay. What's going on, family? Well, first and foremost, I want to apologize for the last episode that I recorded. Your boy was struggling. Your boy was struggling last week, and I have double checked, triple checked to make sure that my batteries are good on my mics and my mic receiver. I made sure that I'm actually recording my voice this time around. So yeah, the last episode that I dropped, the sound was completely off. I was using the camera sound, and that's probably why you heard all these clicks and background noises. If you watched and you stood through that episode, you a real one. You a real one, okay? So I just want to say thank you to you. But anyway, I wanted to get into an interesting conversation that I would have with myself, my old self, my previous self, four or 5 years ago? No. Yeah, 3.5 years ago, coming up on 4 years ago. I had a moment where I was reflecting a little bit on what advice I would give to me back then, especially given all that I know right now and the experiences that I've had. And I thought that might be helpful for some people who are in similar positions. And it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter, where you're at in life, but I think it might just be good perspective for you. And hopefully it's something that you find valuable. So let's dive right into it. Obviously, at the end of the episode, I'll also share some life updates and funny things, but I want to get into this conversation that I want to have with my old self, I guess. Anyway. So let's start. The first things that I wanted to share with my previous self was to seek God in all that you do and to get in the Word and get around people of faith. I think back then, when I quit my job, I was very, very much spiritually led. It felt a lot more like a spiritual decision, something good for my soul. I wasn't so much concerned about making a certain amount of money or impressing other people. I just wanted to do something that I felt fulfilled me and that I thought would make God proud. I think throughout that time, I'd gone through many different transitions outside of quitting my job. I'd also ended a relationship that I was in for 9 months. I started just picking up different habits. I started posting on social media a lot. And I think throughout that whole experience, I had good habits in general. Like I would, pray and I would very much speak positivity into my situation because you have to, especially when you're first starting out. You have to have a lot of faith in yourself. I think what was really missing though was a bit of guidance when it comes to my own personal morality and whatnot. And I think a lot of us get what we believe is right and wrong from our parents, from our environment. But there's something about getting it from the Bible and seeing your life play out in the past and how you may have done the opposite of what the Bible has said and how that affected your life, how it affected people who were around you. There's so many different things that come about when you start reading the Bible and you get into the Word and see it for yourself. The other part of it was also getting around more people of faith. I didn't realize how important that was back then. I was very hyper independent, and that attitude carried itself throughout. Now, I had hired a business coach and signed up for a mentorship program for my business. So it wasn't like I was just trying to do everything on my own. But I do think that, especially it being 2022 when I quit my job and started all this, I just got too comfortable being in my own apartment by myself with no other sort of guidance. And yeah, that's a very tricky place to be. And not even tricky, but you're very vulnerable in that spot because all of these thoughts that could come about or could sway you one way or another, you're just more susceptible to it, and you don't have as many checkpoints when you're living on your own and not really talking to people about specific things that you're working towards. So yeah, I've just realized the power of having people around who are of faith and who are just aligned on common principles. I think that that's really been eye-opening for me because I've realized that certain things that are within the Bible that are instructed by God are very possible. There are people who are actually walking through with it. One of those things for me personally was, celibacy and waiting until marriage. That concept to me was I just thought that was like a pie in the sky dream that people just say but don't actually do. And yeah, just being around more people of faith, I've realized how important that is and how doable it is when you put the right boundaries. So that's going to be the first thing that I'd recommend for anyone, but especially where I was at in my life. Yeah, I think praying and being as God-led as possible was something I was pretty good at that time, but being in the Word and getting more specific instructions, I think would have allowed me to avoid certain pitfalls, whether it be on Big Brother, whether it be after Big Brother, and the rest of my life. So that's the first thing that I wanted to mention. And then the second thing, which kind of I mentioned within the first recommendation around like getting around other people of faith, is the real point here is just like hyper independence. Independence. You would think that that's not a hard word to say, but right now, boy, oh boy, that coffee, maybe it just dried out my mouth or something. I'm gonna take a sip of water eventually. But hyper independence isn't strength. I think I leaned very much into that. And, it's a fine line with some of the podcasts that I was listening to back then and how I was interpreting it, where I very much thought that I just needed me, and I just needed me and God and my relationship with the Lord. That's all that I thought I really needed. And yeah, we always just need community. And even if you have a coach or if there's still an importance to being able to like communicate and share a lot more and ask for help when it's needed. Because I just got very obsessed with being like self-made and wanting to do everything on my own, and that would fill up my ego and that would fill up my pride. But we're called to love on thy neighbor. We're supposed to be in community with one another, and especially in the body of Christ, right? Like we make up the body of Christ as believers. So just think that that's very important, and that was something that I had probably missed at that time, just given my situation and where I was in my ego. But I've, again, just very recently learned how important it is to have community. And I would definitely tell that to myself back then. And I would also say, I would have a pattern of probably disassociating with friends, especially when I got into a relationship. And there's a lot of guys, there's a whole bunch of jokes around guys who, once they get a girlfriend, you don't see them anymore and all that sort of stuff. And then what eventually happens is you make that relationship the thing that you worship. And I was very much a victim of that. Like I would do anything to make sure that, my girlfriend was good and that our relationship was good, which is, all honorable things. But when you put it that much on a pedestal, it just puts things out of order. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the Bible is it lays out the order, and what is really important and how you should go about things, keeping God first, right? And then, relationship second and who you're eventually going to marry, obviously. But yeah, it was just a thing that I had to learn for myself. And it took some time to come across that. And yeah, literally this year is when I really honed in on that lesson. So that's the second one. Hyper independence is not strength. Third is just being patient in all that you do. Progress does not happen overnight, and that's something that, for some reason, I think the longer you're trying to figure something out, the more impatient you eventually become. Because I feel like at the beginning of me starting my business and just working at it without seeing results, I think it was really to be expected. But it's almost as if the longer I was doing it, the more pressure I was putting on myself to be able to figure certain things out, or to want to maybe shortcut certain things. I would even say my decision to go on Big Brother was a bit rooted in that. And I'm not, I have no regrets. And if I were to go back and do it again, I would do the same exact thing. But I am honest in acknowledging that there was a bit of me that wanted to sort of shortcut my success in coaching, and thinking that like, oh, well, this is an opportunity to really like build a larger platform, grow my coaching business and start impacting more people a lot faster than maybe I would have if I hadn't gone on the show. And yeah, that was definitely a part of that decision. And there was a bit of a desire to just want to get there as soon as possible, right? And don't get me wrong, it definitely helped. I just think that whatever you're doing, it's always going to require patience in order for you to like really embrace the next step without rushing things and trying to do things way ahead of schedule. And slow growth is great growth. Like you don't have to sit here and become an overnight success. And I think a lot of the times, because of social media, we see that people, like blow up very quickly because of the algorithm. But even them, they were posting very consistently without a lot of traction, without a lot of views, without a lot of engagement. And you don't really see that, and I think it's a healthy exercise for someone who is looking to grow on social media or just in general to just look at examples, because the cool part about social media is that you could see what people were posting before they blew up and how often they were posting. And I've just been doing that more often, where I've just looked at like, wow, like, this person started, posting consistently in July. And then it was August when one video got 1 million views. And then from there, every video has consistently gotten more views, and their follower count obviously changed. So I think it's really important to, just embrace the fact that it might take months, it might take years in order for you to really see the results that you're hoping for. And you also got to embrace that, you might hit the bottom. You might hit a pretty low point where you think things aren't working and you're not going to figure it out. And that could be very disheartening. And I've gone through many of those periods as well too, where I've just felt like kind of defeated and not so much myself. But the one thing that I remember hearing when I started, going into like being an entrepreneur and really embracing it, was that you don't lose if you don't quit. So whatever you're doing, even if it's not entrepreneurship, even if it's like getting a PhD or accomplishing anything else, if you decide that I will make this work, your mind will find all different routes and things that may not even be there physically, but it will find a way to make those things happen to achieve whatever you believe. And that's something that I've really had to lean in on, even when I thought I had everything figured out and then I wound up doing something and then it didn't work out. Yeah, it could be very, very frustrating. And that's the character building that needs to happen, but it's also the exercise of patience that is required to do anything great. So yeah, waiting and just trusting God's timing in all that you do, I think is a really important lesson to take away. So that was a very big one for me. The last one that I'll mention here is, I think something that people don't really enjoy talking about too much, and I think it's the reason why it's one of the main problems in most people's lives, is money, right? So I would tell myself to control and monitor spending more than anything. Control and monitor spending. I remember I got out of Big Brother, and obviously I got second place, so you get a cash prize for that. And I remember having an idea of what I was gonna do, but in my mind it was like, oh, this is just like a year's engineering salary. So I kind of thought to myself like, all right, like this will essentially last me this year. But I didn't calculate and get specific about how I wanted to spread that out when it came to my rent and all that sort of stuff. And I winded up just mismanaging a lot of it because I wanted to, invest and do all sorts of things to, again, like shortcut my success. And yeah, I just went about things very carelessly when I would look at my finances. And it was also something that I feel like I wasn't really monitoring too much because I was so distracted with everything that was going on post Big Brother and the show, and then also trying to figure out like how do I sustain my business and do this consistently while also having my foot out the door to get into maybe entertainment opportunities, all this sort of stuff. And I just feel like if most of us would control our spending and live below our means, then a lot of us wouldn't have the money problems that we have. I don't think it's a real income issue. And don't get me wrong, like the cost of living is definitely going up, and incomes are not matching, inflation, right? So I'll acknowledge that. But I still believe that most people are just overspending in general. And on top of that, not monitoring how much they're spending and what that is leading them to. And that's a very tough conversation to have because a lot of people just, it's a taboo subject to talk about money and to get specific about things. And I've just realized that if you don't monitor it, if you're not a steward over it, it won't be blessed. Just like anything. If you don't steward your relationships, they won't be blessed, right? And you wonder why you're alone. If you don't steward your body, you're gonna be unhealthy. And it's gonna start manifesting itself in your health and differences in your breathing, your cardiovascular health, and other challenges. So if you don't monitor something, specifically your money, then it's going to be really tough for you to grow your finances, but also to even just know what the real problem is. So I would definitely recommend that for myself back then. I just felt like I was living so in the moment that, there were just so many opportunities that I could have had to be a little bit more strategic around what I was doing with my finances, but also to just like monitor it, just look at it more often. A lot of the times I was, I'll just be vulnerable with you. I just was living life and doing things and knowing that I had enough, you know what I mean? But did I really know I had enough if I wasn't monitoring it? So that's another thing that I would share. But yeah, those are definitely some of the lessons that, I felt like stood out the most for me, just looking at my old self and what I would probably want to consistently remind myself about. Because I'm sure that in the moment I probably was aware of some of the things that I mentioned, like obviously having a relationship with God, being hyper independent and how that's kind of rooted in something that's more ego fulfilling, and having patience and monitoring your money. But I think just what happens is in life is you're always presented with different things that can become larger distractions from what you know and from what you believe. And I think that that's what all of us fall victim to. You might meet someone who you're attracted to, and then all of a sudden that's what you're focused on, right? Or you may have a new job and you're trying to impress your coworkers, you're trying to impress your manager or your employer, and that becomes your new thing, right? And we just put all our eggs into that basket. But I think it's just really helpful to make sure that we're remaining as balanced as possible and not glorifying anything more than we glorify our Lord. So it's a really big thing for me, and hopefully that helps you understand a little bit more about myself and maybe helps you out in the season that you're in. Okay, so now that we got through all the serious stuff, okay, all the Monty's isms and all that, I wanted to share a couple of life updates, some things that I think are very wholesome, but also some funny things as well too. I got invited to play some football outdoors, and that was this past Sunday. So, I mean, I was excited, but also nervous as well too. I'm 30 years old. I turned 30 in May, and I just don't do a lot of sports as consistently as I used to. And whenever I do, I just know my body gets wrecked afterwards. And I don't even know if it's about my age or it's just about I have more periods of time in between when I do something like really athletic. But boy, oh boy, it was super fun. There ain't nothing like going to an open field and meeting up with your boys, or even just meeting guys there who are ready to play and just want to have fun. There's something about that I just really missed, and it felt so good. I felt like a little kid again. And don't get me wrong, like it was fun to actually play, and my team won. But it was just like, dang man, like it kind of reminded me of being a kid again and how free and just adventurous the day goes. But the one unfortunate thing about that was I didn't get injured. Nothing crazy happened, thank God. I was like so thankful I didn't tear an ACL or pull a hamstring. I was very, very thankful about that. But I was convinced to go out there without no shoes on in the grass. And I don't know, like initially I was like, oh man, it'd be so cool to get grounded, just be super grounded with the earth, man. Like just play football without no socks and shoes. But I tell you what, I ain't never doing that again, okay? My feet were just shredded. And, it's a couple days since I played, but my feet are still burning because they haven't healed yet. There's been just so many scars from me running around without shoes on. So yeah, if you go outside and play, for those who play without shoes, I have a lot of respect for you, and I don't know how your feet got so calloused, but I'm not doing that again. I'm definitely gonna wear shoes next time. So it's just something funny. The other thing I wanted to mention was I had an opportunity to serve the homeless Saturday morning, and I don't share this to try to boast or gloat about how good I am or whatever have you. I'll be very honest with you. It's one of the things that I do struggle with. Both of my parents being from New York, I was born in New York, so there's just a certain attitude that you have towards the homeless because you see them more often, and you see all different types and whatever have you. So I had an opportunity to serve the homeless earlier this summer, and it was also a very good experience, and just hadn't gotten back to it, but I did this past weekend, and it's just very eye-opening. It's a very eye-opening experience because a lot of people are ignored, right? So, and I've been guilty of this, right? Like where you see someone who's homeless and you try to just like move on with your day because you don't want to be bothered or interacted with. But when you actually do the opposite, when you take some time to seek these folks and have a conversation with them, there's something really powerful about that I think a lot of people miss out on, because you realize that person has a story. You realize that person may or may not have family or support, and they're just trying to make it every day. And you'll be so surprised by the positive attitudes that you come across with folks who are out there, and just people who are just so glad that you didn't walk right past them and ignore them. And thankfully, the folks that I volunteered with, we provide like water bottles and little like packages with like socks and things of that nature, lady products for the ladies out there, and food as well. And yeah, you just really never know. And I think it's as much as you feel like you're supposed to be doing it for them, it really just is so much more for you than you think. So highly encourage that. And it's just a lot of perspective, especially when you're downtown and you see these high rises that are probably going for $3,000 to $10,000 a month for rent, and you got people right down in the streets next to these high rises who are struggling and trying to just survive another day. So yeah, I highly recommend that. And it could be a very challenge. I would obviously recommend you do it with a group or with someone else. Don't just go out there by yourself. But yeah, it was very eye opening. So can't wait for another opportunity to do that. Last thing I wanted to mention is obviously next week is going to be Thanksgiving. So I hope that everybody has an opportunity to see family. I'm debating on when I'll drop the next episode. I probably want to record something ahead of time and get it out before actual Thanksgiving Day. But what I will say is Black Friday is, obviously right after Thanksgiving. And I may have mentioned before that I wanted to do something for Black Friday. So I do have discounted rates that I'm offering to folks who are interested in my Fit and Faith program, or even just working with me strictly as a fitness coach. I'm really excited to just keep helping more and more people get in shape. I've actually found that as of recently, I've been able to continue working and retain a lot of the clients that I've been working with just because of the experience. And I think I've noticed an uptick in clients who want to continue working with me. And that really means a lot. And it makes me want to find more people like that who I enjoy working with. So that's where I'm at right now. Is I do have some slots open and would love to work with anyone who is ready to take action and see some changes in their body, but also, build their relationship with the Lord and be around other folks who want to do the same. So if you are interested in that, I do share the link, or I will share the link in the podcast description. Just fill out a quick form and then I'll reach out to you, and I'll offer these Black Friday discounts from now until probably the following week of Thanksgiving. And then I'll, cut things off from there. So yeah, apply now while spots are limited. And I'm excited to work with you. But other than that, I hope that you all have a blessed rest of your week. And yeah, don't forget to just enjoy the time that you have with family, for those who do have family, and embrace that as much as you can. All right. So we are done with this episode. Hope you've been encouraged to bet on yourself and pursue all that life has in store for you. God bless and have a blessed rest of your day.